Why do some people never seek validation, yet the world can't stop watching them? They don't talk much, they don't show off, but their presence dominates, silently, powerfully. They weren't born confident. They forged it in solitude when no one was watching, when their only audience was their own discipline. Have you ever wondered why certain people never chase approval? Yet somehow the entire world seems captivated by them. They speak less, they show less, and yet when they walk into a room, the energy shifts. It's not luck, it's not charm, it's something colder, something shaped in silence, tempered by solitude and relentless self-discipline. Confidence is not born in crowds, it's carved out in solitude when there's no applause, no recognition, and the only one witnessing your struggle is you. The weak crave to be seen, the strong crave control, and that control begins in the mind. When you kill the need to please, when you no longer seek permission to exist, that's the moment confidence stops being a performance and becomes your natural state. They taught you to smile more, to talk more, to share more. But what if true power lies in saying nothing, in observing, in becoming unreadable? Your mind is either your sharpest weapon or your biggest liability. If you don't train it to obey you, it will betray you. If you're ready to grow dangerously silent and mentally sharp, comment below. Silence sharpens me. Welcome to Stoicism Philosophy Daily. This is the beginning of your mental ascent. Part 1. Breaking the slave mindset you were trained to obey long before you even knew what freedom meant. Taught to be agreeable, to blend in, to care about what others think of you as if their approval were your oxygen. That wasn't education, that was programming. They didn't teach you how to be powerful. They taught you how to be liked. Now you smile when you should stay silent. You apologize when you should be advancing. And worst of all, you doubt your instincts simply because they don't match the crowd. But here's the truth. The more you depend on external voices, the weaker your internal voice becomes. A mind ruled by others is a slave in disguise. No chains, no whips, just quiet obedience to invisible masters. Confidence doesn't come from being accepted. It comes from being free. Free to reject their script. Free to unlearn their rules and write your own. Your power begins the moment you stop asking for permission to think differently. If you're ready to destroy the slave code wired into the modern mind, comment below. I obey no voice but my own. Now that you've broken free from external voices, it's time to conquer the true ruler within, your emotions. Part 2. Discipline over emotion. Mastering the storm within you cannot lead yourself if you're still being led by emotions. Anger, desire, doubt. They feel real in the moment, overwhelming and intense, but they are nothing more than chemical storms passing through your mind. And a storm, it has no loyalty. It comes, it wreaks havoc, then it disappears. That's why weak minds chase impulses. They lash out, they crumble, they beg to be understood. But you don't react, you respond. You don't get swept away, you observe. You study your emotions the way a scientist studies fire, with curiosity, but never letting it burn you. A man who moves with discipline, not emotion, becomes unpredictable. And when you're unpredictable, you cannot be controlled. They want you emotional on purpose, because the moment you get triggered, you become readable. And when you're readable, you're no longer a threat. So stop feeding the fire. Start sharpening your blade. Master your moods, because the mind that governs itself governs the entire game. If you feel that internal shift happening now, comment below. I lead my emotions, they don't lead me. Part 3. The power of strategic detachment. You begin to gain true control the moment you stop needing it. Attachment is the root of most internal suffering. Not because love, loyalty, or desire are wrong, but because dependence makes you fragile. And a dependent mind is one that bends easily. You attach to outcomes, to people, to stories that you believe define who you are. And slowly, without realizing it, you give those things power over your emotional state. That's not strength, that's submission. And you cannot dominate anything outward until you stop depending on it inward. Most people don't break from pressure itself. They break because of what they fear to lose. Their identity is stitched into things beyond. They're control. And when those things shift, they collapse. You want peace? Detach. You want clarity in chaos? Detach. You want to stop being controlled by the things that once seduced you? Detach completely until you can sit in silence without craving validation. Until you can walk away from what no longer aligns, without mourning it. Strategic detachment isn't apathy, it's precision. It's the decision to rise. Now that you've detached from chaos and emotional dependency, a new power emerges. The ability to remain still, sharp, and strategically silent. Part 4. Silence. The sharpest weapon. Once you rise above emotional static, you begin to see the game clearly. A series of illusions designed to pull you in, drain your strength, and keep you weak. And when you stop playing along, they'll start calling you names. They'll say you've changed. They'll label your silence as arrogance, your distance as selfishness. Let them, because the stronger you become, the more your evolution threatens those still shackled to chaos. Your transformation disturbs them. That's not your problem, it's proof you're growing. Emotional detachment is not the death of feeling, it's the birth of freedom. It's the power to not act on every impulse, to not explain yourself to every confused mind, to not engage in battles that serve no purpose. This is where your power sharpens, not by adding more noise, but by subtracting what seeks to control you. You weren't born to attach to everything. You're here to evolve, to observe, to move with purpose, not with permission. So, train yourself to walk away without needing to look back. Train yourself to stay silent when chaos screams for a reaction. Train yourself to let go of anything or anyone that clouds your clarity. If you're ready to release everything that dilutes your power, comment below. I release what weakens me. You're not becoming heartless, you're becoming ruthless with your peace. The shift is happening now. Stay cold, stay sharp. Part 5. Silence is a weapon. Silence is not emptiness. It is precision. It is presence without permission. It is power that doesn't beg to be seen because it already knows its impact. The loudest voice in the room is rarely the strongest. More often, it's the most insecure. Noise exists to distract, to impress, to overcompensate. But silence makes people guess. It makes them wonder where your mind is and what you're planning. That's psychological dominance. If you want it, speak less. In every room, people are giving away their advantage through overexposure, oversharing, overexplaining. They mistake vulnerability for strategy. But the truth is, the more people know, the more they can use. A silent mind is unreadable, and an unreadable person, unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. Most fear silence, because silence reveals. Once you've mastered the power of silence, you'll notice something deeper. Most people fear silence not because it's empty, but because it reflects who they really are. Part 5. Mastering silence, turning stillness into a weapon. Most people can't stand stillness. When there's no noise, no external attention, they're forced to confront their own minds. And that terrifies them. So what do? They fill the silence with chatter, with movement, with a constant hunger for validation. But underneath it all, it's just avoidance. They fear silence because silence is honest. But if you can sit with silence, command it, and use it, you rise above them. Let others argue to be heard. Let them interrupt. Let them react. Let them defend. You listen. You collect. You observe. You see weakness revealed in careless words. You spot desperation in their constant need to be understood. And when the time is right, if you even need to, you strike. But often, you don't need to, because those who are truly powerful don't speak often. But when they do, everyone listens. Silence stirs imagination. It forces others to create stories about you. And when you control that unknown, you control their perception effortlessly. That's the kind of influence you're building now. Cold, strategic, and detached from the addiction to be heard. You don't speak to prove anything. You speak to create impact. That's how leaders emerge. That's how kings operate. That's how psychological warfare is won. Be so silent your absence screams. Be so composed your stillness unsettles them. and be so mentally still that their chaos can't even touch you. If you're ready to turn silence into your sharpest blade, comment below, "My silence speaks louder than their noise." Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them wonder, while you sharpen your mind in silence and prepare to command the room. Without saying a word, Part 6, the art of being unreadable. A poet doesn't always come from dominance. Sometimes it comes from mystery. The less they know about you, the more they imagine. And the more they imagine, the more control you quietly gain. In a world obsessed with visibility, those who remain unreadable become dangerous. If they can read your face, they can find your weakness. If they can sense your tone, they can shift your mood. If they know what you want, they can control how you act. That's why so many people stay stuck. Not because they lack talent, but because they expose too much. They speak before thinking. They react instead of observing. Now that you understand the power of being unreadable, you're ready for the next level. Mastering the art of psychological invisibility. Part 6, the silent observer. Moving like a ghost. Most people speak too much not because they're in control, but because they can't bear being misunderstood. They crave validation more than they crave dominance. But everything changes the moment you stop oversharing, the moment you pause before you speak, the moment you realize mystery builds power. That's when you step away from the herd. Being unreadable doesn't mean being fake. It means being intentional. It means developing the kind of internal control that lets you feel deeply, but never act impulsively. You move with calm precision. You speak with calculated weight. You reveal only what strengthens your position. When someone tries to provoke you, you don't flinch. When someone pries, you give surface-level answers. When someone tries to define you, you give them nothing solid to hold on to, because the less they know, the more they project. And their projections, that's their weakness, not yours. This is the true art of psychological warfare. Let them think they understand you while you stay 5 moves ahead, unshaken and unbothered. In strategy, predictability is death. A predictable mind can be gained. It can be baited, lured, emotionally cornered. But an unreadable mind, it becomes a void, impenetrable. A mirror that reflects their confusion. A riddle they cannot solve. You owe the world nothing, not your thoughts, not your explanations. You owe yourself power. And power is preserved through restraint. Let them talk. Let them speculate. Let them misunderstand. Every wrong assumption they make is a move you didn't have to make. You never give away your playbook. You let them play blind while you see everything. So be the one they can't predict. Be the one who listens more than he speaks. Be the one they whisper about in rooms you've never even entered, because your silence echoes louder than their noise. If you're ready to master the art of psychological invisibility, comment below, "They can't read what? I don't reveal." You are no longer here to be understood. You are here to be unshakable, unseen, unstoppable. Let confusion serve you while you move in perfect clarity. Once you've become unreadable and untouchable, the next battle begins against the most subtle form of weakness, the need to be liked. Part 7. Kill the need to be liked. Cut the leash of approval. Approval is the invisible leash. You don't see it, but it pulls you. It shapes your words, adjusts your posture, and redirects your entire presence toward weakness. You think you're being kind. You think you're building connection. But deep down, you're negotiating with your own power just to feel accepted by people who don't even respect themselves. You were taught early on, be agreeable, be polite, don't rock the boat. But here's what they never told you. Boats don't move unless they are rocked. Agreeable men don't rise. They blend, they bend, and eventually they break. You believe likability opens doors. It doesn't. Fear does. Respect does. A reputation for silence, for control, for unpredictability. That's what opens doors or keeps them locked tight. In your presence, there is no true confidence without detaching from the need to be liked. Because as long as you need approval, you'll subconsciously adjust to earn it. You'll over-explain. You'll hesitate before speaking truth. You'll shrink in rooms that demand presence, not politeness. You can't be strategic if you're emotional about perception. You can't be feared if you're addicted to validation. And you cannot be respected if your decisions are governed by the scoreboard of public opinion. You don't need to be rude, but you must be indifferent, polished, measured, unmoved by praise, immune to criticism, because both are just forms of manipulation. Praise makes you soft. Criticism makes you reactive. Both hand your control to someone else. Once you kill the need to be liked, you change. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You decide faster because you're no longer calculating who'll approve. You move through life like a ghost in their system, present but untouchable. People will sense it. They'll either fear you or fail to understand you. Let them. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be respected, and if necessary, remembered as a storm. If approval is your oxygen, they control your breath. But once you learn to breathe in your own silence, you become untouchable. Kill the need to be liked, and you kill half the weight that's been holding you back. If you're ready, comment this below. I don't need to be liked to be powerful. Once you've detached from the need to be liked, you step into a different realm, where you live not to please but to be free. This is where your inner power begins to rise. Part 8. Emotional control, your psychological armor. If you're ready to walk through life with nothing to prove and no one to please, comment below. I don't need to be liked. I need to be free. Let others chase popularity. Let them beg for applause, for fake smiles, for validation. You're building something else. Power, control, a mind that bows to no crowd. Number 7. Emotional control is psychological armor. You are not powerful because you feel nothing. You are powerful because nothing controls what you feel. There's a difference between feeling and flinching, between having emotions and being ruled by them. And here's the truth no one teaches growing up. He who controls your emotions controls you. By that logic, most people are already owned. They flinch at criticism. They fold under pressure. They explode when disrespected. They chase apologies. They beg to be understood. They think they're being real. But all they're doing is showing the world how easy they are to move. They are readable. And once you're readable, you're predictable. And once you're predictable, you're powerless. You want to become untouchable? Then you must become emotionally armored. Not dead inside. Not numb, but composed. Calculating. Calm under fire. This isn't self-help. This is psychological warfare. This is survival in a world built to trigger you, just to use your reaction against you. If you still believe emotional openness is a virtue in every setting, then you haven't been in the rooms where real power is traded in silence, where deals are made with a glance, not with words, where the man who speaks first always loses ground. Train yourself to hold your stare when disrespected, to listen without interrupting, even when boiling inside, to walk away from betrayal without slamming the door, because the one who controls himself controls the frame, and the frame, it shapes reality. Most people don't realize this. Emotions are data. They're signals, not commands. Anger is data. Fear is data. Insecurity is data. But only weak minds act on every spike of emotion. Now that you see emotions as signals, not commands, you begin to treat them like a strategist studies a battlefield. Part 9. Respond strategically, move without leaking. Power. You no longer react. You no longer lash out. You observe like a tactician scanning the terrain. You ask, is this worth engaging? Is there leverage in this moment? Does this serve my long-term position, or is it a trap? Every emotional outburst is a loss of position. Every reactive response is a leak in your power. And over time, those leaks drown you in regret, drama, and unnecessary damage. But control compounds. One day of composure becomes a week becomes a month becomes a new identity. And eventually, you no longer react. You watch, you read, you set the pace, you control the narrative, and the people around you, they begin to notice. You become a mirror. They see themselves reflected in your calm. They feel exposed in your silence. Because when you no longer respond, they're forced to wrestle with their own projection. And that is when the power flips. Suddenly, the loudest person sounds childish. The reactive one looks unstable. And you sit in stillness like a mountain dot in your silence. It becomes the tension. Understand this, people don't fear emotions. They fear the absence of them. When they insult you and you don't flinch, they panic. When they lie and you don't call them out, they wonder what you're planning. When they cross a line and you remain composed, they start fearing a consequence they can't see. Because calm minds plan in silence, and silence holds more power than rage ever could. Let others broadcast their meltdowns. Let them rant. Let them dramatize. They think they're being authentic, but all they're really doing is confirming their instability. In truth, power doesn't speak often. It doesn't explain. It doesn't whine. It watches. It waits. And then it moves with precision. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you regretted what you said in anger? How often did you wish you could take back a message? An outburst, a heat-of-the-moment decision? Now ask, how often have you regretted being calm? Exactly. The cost of emotional reaction is heavy. It burns bridges you might need again. It exposes vulnerabilities you wish you'd kept hidden. It hands your opponent your playbook, while they keep theirs sealed. But calm buys you space. Calm gives you the room to. Once you've mastered calm, you're not just holding still. You're directing the entire room with your silence, like a conductor without a baton. Part 10. Turning calm into a strategic weapon. Calm gives you leverage. While others bleed out from their own reactions, you stay ready, clear, and in control. Calm keeps your options open. It allows you to choose the next move, while others are already trapped in the consequences of their emotional outbursts. Picture this: two men sit across from each other at a negotiation table. One raises his voice, slams his hand, demands attention. The other, he leans back, silent, observing. No fear, no defense, no need to dominate. Now ask yourself, who's really in control? It's not the louder one. It's the man who chooses not to react, the one whose silence forces doubt into the other man's mind. That's emotional control at work. That's what you're becoming. Because you now understand. Confidence built on praise is fake. Power built on attention is shallow. But power built on inner control, that's permanent. It doesn't fade when the applause stops. It doesn't crumble when you're alone. It doesn't panic when attacked. It endures because it doesn't depend on the world. It depends only on you. So here's what you train from this moment forward. Your facial expressions. Learn to smile without approval, frown without anger. Your tone, even in conflict, let it sound like calm judgment. Your body, your posture must never show fear or agitation. And most importantly, your inner dialogue. Because the loudest voice to silence is your own. Your ego will scream for revenge. Your pride will demand justice. Your fear will beg to escape. But none of those voices are your master. You are. If you master the storm within, the outside world becomes just background noise, while you focus on the signal. If you're ready to weaponize your calm, comment below, my calm is my armor. My silence is my power. Stop explaining, stop proving, stop reacting. Move like the storm, silent until it strikes. Because real control, it isn't loud, it's invisible. And once you master it, you never lose it. After mastering calm and moving with precision, the next step is not just to exist, but to become the one they can't replace. Part 11. Becoming the one they can't replace. Most people live as placeholders. They walk into rooms and leave as if they were never there. The moment they're gone, someone else fills their spot. That's the cost of being forgettable, of being agreeable, of choosing to be liked instead of becoming legendary. But you're not here for that. You're here to become something different. To build yourself into someone they can't replace. Not because you're loud, not because you seek attention, but because you've become precise, disciplined, dangerous in your silence. You don't become irreplaceable by accident. It's not about charisma. It's not about luck. It's not about being nice. It's about strategy. It's about deliberate silence. It's about becoming so skilled, so composed, so consistently excellent that removing you would cost them more than they can afford. That's power, not popularity, not clout. Power. And here's the truth they won't tell you. The system you were raised in was designed to make you replaceable. They taught you to follow rules, follow trends, follow people, to be easy to manage, easy to read, easy to duplicate. They trained you to be a cog, not a force, but you don't rise by blending in. You rise by becoming the standard they can't replicate. You rise by mastering a craft deeper than the surface. You rise by subtracting noise and sharpening your edge, while others chase attention by doing 100 things poorly. You do one thing so well it haunts them. That's the secret. They'll forget the loud ones, but they'll never forget the one who delivered when it mattered most, the one who stayed calm when others broke, the one who never begged for credit, because excellence was its own reward. To become irreplaceable, you must detach from needing attention. You must build in silence. You must separate yourself through discipline. You must stop showing up with average energy in rooms that demand greatness. You don't need to be the most charming. You need to be the most centered. When others react, you analyze. When others panic, you pause. When others gossip, you disappear. Because you don't chase relevance, you build presence. Presence that lingers, even after you've left the room. Once you've become someone they can't replace, the next step is to be the one they depend on when chaos erupts. The calm in the center of the storm. Part 12. Presence without words. The weight you carry in cross-true presence speaks before you do. It enters the room ahead of your voice. It shifts the atmosphere, even when you say nothing. But let's go deeper. You are only truly irreplaceable when you hold your weight. Under pressure, anyone can show up when it's easy. Anyone can speak like a leader when nothing's wrong. But when everything is collapsing, who do they turn to? Be that person. Be the one who brings order when everything is burning. The one who doesn't flinch, doesn't blame, doesn't look for shelter, but becomes it. That's rare. That's what makes you irreplaceable. People think it's about being good at everything. It's not. It's about being elite at one thing and becoming known for it. The surgeon doesn't need to be funny. The general doesn't need to be popular. The strategist doesn't need to be loved. They need clarity. And they deliver certainty. That's your mission now. Stop trying to impress. Start becoming an anchor. Be the person people think of when they need stability, when they need execution, when they need truth without emotion, power without noise. Because once people depend on your presence, you've already won, without speaking a word. But hear this clearly. The higher you rise, the more you'll be resented. Not everyone wants to see you become irreplaceable, because your very existence reminds them of what they're not. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. They'll accuse you of being distant. But what they won't say, what they'll never admit, is this: your absence makes the room feel hollow. Your detachment exposes their dependency. Your level of self-respect makes them question themselves. You weren't built to be everywhere. You were built to be necessary in very specific places. And in those places, you make your presence felt, not with noise, but with preparation. They don't see the early mornings. They don't see the weekends you gave up. They don't see the internal wars you fought just to stay focused. But they'll feel it when you enter, and they'll feel it even more when you leave. Let's be clear, this is not about being perfect. Perfection is fragile. This is about being undeniable in how you think, in how you deliver, in how little you need and how much you bring. Once you've become irreplaceable, not by perfection, but by presence and precision. The next move is clear. You don't ask for a seat at the table. You are the table. Part 13. Stop asking for permission. Build your own foundation if you truly want to become the one they can't replace. Stop asking for a seat at the table. Start building your own table, brick by brick, while they're still waiting for permission. And one day, they'll come looking for you, not because you begged for their validation, but because their system started to collapse without you in it. So walk in like you're not looking for a job, because you are the job. Move like your absence is a risk to their entire foundation. Operate so precisely, so strategically, that removing you would be a liability they can't afford. You don't remind them of your value. You become the benchmark. You set the pace. And when you disappear, your silence is louder than any speech you could give. That is irreplaceability. So if you're ready to shed the version of yourself that chased relevance and become the rare force that redefines it, comment below. They'll feel my absence like a wound that doesn't heal. Let them copy your tactics. Let them imitate your tone. Let them study your presence. But here's what they'll never be able to steal. They can't replicate your mind. They can't fake your composure. They can't replace your silence, because that level of power only comes from one source, unbreakable. Self-mastery. And mastery leaves fingerprints on everything it touches. Every decision, every word, every silence. So remember, the goal isn't to be known by everyone. It's to be needed by the few who recognize real value when they see it. And once you become that person, the world begins to adjust around you. No more chasing, no more proving, no more waiting to be seen. You're not just in the room, you are the room. And if they ever forget that, your exit will teach them what your presence made possible. When you no longer need to be seen, validated, or applauded, that's when you become the center others must adjust around. And now, it's time to rise to the highest level of inner power. Total detachment. Part 14. Radical detachment. Releasing all attachments to outcome, identity, and reward. True detachment goes beyond emotions. It is the complete separation from outcome, from identity, from recognition and reward. Because here's one of the most dangerous truths you'll ever hear. As long as you still need something from the world still has a way to control you. If you still crave recognition, they can manipulate you with praise. If you still long for justice, they can torment you with injustice. If you still seek understanding, they can keep you on your knees, begging for clarity that will never come. But once you fully detach from all of it, you gain everything. The less you need, the clearer you see. The less you seek, the more silent power you emanate. Understand this deeply. True power does not chase, it does not cling, it does not explain. It simply exists. So complete, so rooted, so still, that others are forced to orbit around it. That is what radical detachment gives you. You stop caring about being liked, and in doing so, you step into a realm where you can no longer be manipulated. I used to be the person who always tried to be understood, to be accepted, to not get left behind. I spoke too much, reacted too quickly, and let emotions drive my most important choices. But the more I did that, the more I felt I was losing control of myself. Then I learned a simple but powerful truth. Silence is not weakness, silence is strength. And the moment I stopped seeking validation from others, I began reclaiming control from within. I stopped reacting to every stare. I became the observer, the one who chooses the timing, not the one caught in the current. And soon, I realized my silence began to speak for me. They no longer judged me by what I said. They started fearing what I didn't say. I no longer needed to be everywhere. I just needed to be present in the right place with a presence that shifted everything. So if you're tired of pleasing everyone, if you're sick of being misunderstood, underestimated, or manipulated, maybe it's time to step away from the noise and into the stillness of your own power. This path isn't easy, but it is the right one. You don't have to shout to be respected. Stay silent and let your presence speak for itself, because the one who cannot be replaced is the one who never depended. And the one who cannot be manipulated by the world is the one who has already mastered himself. Thank you for watching this video. If you see yourself in these words, leave a comment below. My silence is my power. My calm is my weapon. We'll see each other in the next one.